offline here in our institute, hall number CR12, and also those who have joined online. Thanks for your joining. Before I start and give introduction to our speaker today, I request our director, Professor Ajit Parulekar, Professor Sebastian Morris, and our speaker today, Paranjay Gu Thakurata, to take their seats on the dais. Okay. Give a clap. So again, on behalf of Center for Public Policy and Governance, Goa Institute of Management, I welcome all there in the audience, both offline and online. So it's a great privilege for us to have Paranjay Gu Thakurata with us as a speaker. I just give a brief introduction of Paranjay Gu Thakurata. Paranjay Gu Thakurata's professional career started in June 1977 as a print journalist after he completed a master's degree in economics from the University of Delhi. His work experience spanning more than 4.5 decades cuts across different mass media, the written word, the spoken word, and the audiovisual medium, printed publications, websites, radio, podcasts, television, music videos, documentary cinema. He is a writer, speaker, anchor, interviewer, teacher, analyst, commentator, publisher, producer, director, and consultant. Much of his work is in 3 languages, English, Bengali, his mother tongue, and Hindi. He has published and is publishing in different other languages as well. His main areas of interest are working of the political economy in India and the world and the mass media. He has authored and co-authored 8 books, published more than 30 books, directed and produced more than 25 long documentaries, film series, and several hundreds of short films and videos, including music videos. In particular, he examines the allocation of and pricing of natural resources, the working of crony capitalism and oligarchies, and communications in India. He teaches and speaks on these subjects to students, general audiences, and also trains aspiring and working media professionals. As a member of the visiting faculty, he has been teaching a course on media and society at the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, every year continuously for the last 19 years. He has taught in several other reputed educational institutions in India and other countries in the world. He is also serving as he also served as a visiting professor in the Department of Political Science, Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Delhi, teaching a course on on media and society to MPhil students for 3 years, 2010 to 13. He participates frequently in and also organizes seminars and conferences. He is a regular contributor to publications and website. He is featured on television channels and radio programs as an anchor as well as analyst commentator. He is a consultant with NewsClick portal. He has written and co-authored 8 books and published more than 30 books from April 2014 onwards, almost all of them in association with Authors Upfront. So it's a great privilege for us to have Mr. Paranjay Gu Thakurata with us. Before Paranjay starts his talk, I request our director, Professor Ajit Parulekar, to say a few words on this operation.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, thank you, Paranjay Gu Thakurata, for taking time. I know for a long time taking time to be here and be part of this conversation. For quite a long time, we've been looking forward for this conversation. And thank you, Professor Sebastian Morris, for conceiving this. This is the first amongst many conversations that we hope to witness through this year, and on a continuing basis. The main objective of this conversation is to have strong, riveting, heated conversations on things that matter, so that we are able to contribute in a much bigger way to research, to nation building, to things that are important and that are going to improve our societal impact. So I just wanted to say first that this is the first in a series that we're going to see through the year. I hope a lot more of our faculty colleagues are going to join in. I'm a little bit disappointed with the smaller numbers. I know that we have another parallel meeting that I also walked out of. So once they finish that meeting, I know all the program chairs, dean, registrar, a couple of other people will come here and join in. My intent of being here is to sit on the other side of the fence. So I'm going to get out of this role as soon as possible, and look forward to both of them take this conversation forward and the rest of us pitching in. Yeah, so thank you once again, Professor, thank you once again, Mr. Thakurta, for being here. And thank you, Professor Sebastian, for organizing this.
Initially, we thought when we initially thought this event, we also invited Sapun Dasgupta, MP, and Surendra Kulkarni as co-panelists. However, they had other engagement, and so there are last-minute cancellations. So we are having only Paranjay Thakurata for this talk. But in future, we will be having again those panelists joining, and again the same kind of conversation we'll be having later in the year. So before Paranjay starts his talk, I invite Professor Sebastian Morris, Chairperson, Center for Public Policy and Governance, to set the context of this talk before Paranjay takes it over.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Ajit Parulekar, Director. And a great welcome to you, Joy, who I've known for many, many years. And thanks, Kinshuk. And thank you all of you all for being here. So let me just build on what both Ajit said and Kinshuk said on the idea of this debate, on this set of talks. So as you know, we are at the midst of great political changes which are taking place in India. Okay. Which way we would go is something that can be hotly debated, but equally importantly, what has happened which has led us to this particular situation is also extremely important. We originally thought that instead of, let's say, the Hindu right thinking within its own echo chamber, and let us say the liberal center left, whatever you want to call them, thinking in their own, again, echo chamber, let the two meet in a situation where it doesn't become a tutu meh, but where there can be an involved discussion. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because to each one of us who's in the two chambers, as it were, things look very obvious. Our positions look very, very obvious. Okay? I think is it fine now? Better? Yeah. So for each one of us in our own echo chamber, yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, there are these two echo chambers. We see this daily in WhatsApp, and there are two different kinds of conversations which go on, and the two shall never meet, however much each group, tries to, propagate its thesis, evidences which are in its favor, and so on and so forth. Okay? But the hope that we have here is that in a conversation, in an involved conversation between the two groups, and particularly exemplified by, the intellectuals who, in a sense, have lead these two groups, in the sense of being the intelligentsia, being the opinion leaders, and setting the agenda, that our younger faculty, students, and all of us, okay, will get a flavor of what is on. Okay? That was the idea. And as Kinshuk said, unfortunately, at the very end, we had to, Dr. Swapan Dasgupta could not join us. And therefore, this will be an engagement with Dr. Paranjoy Guha Thakurta. And okay, no doctor, right? I mean, he's Mr. Paranjoy Guha Thakurta. Thanks for the correction. And all of you all, both sitting here and online, do feel free to raise questions as we go along, and perhaps certainly at the very end of the presentation. Okay. Now, before I, let Paranjoy speak in that sense, let's put out the context. Let me try and put out the context. If we look back, and if maybe the world looks back at India, and the world looks back at the 20th century, it's quite likely that history would record the greatest political achievement in the 20th century, not to be the two wars or any such thing, but perhaps India, a great country of civilizational character, going independent, holding its humongous variety together, and in a democratic way. Okay? So Ramchandra Guha, for instance, has tried to describe and try to come to grips with the idea of why India held together. Okay? So India held together because it was a democracy, as many would argue. Okay? Every single social scientist at that time, whether he was of Western origin or he was, more deeply involved in India and understood India, all of them predicted that India would not stand. It would collapse under its own weight, the weight of its diversity, the weight of, caste, of religious diversity, of language diversity, of cultural diversity, and so on. But what happened at the end is we have hung on, and we are the greatest democracy. But perhaps if that democracy is lost, and this is my personal opinion, then perhaps the history would kind of ignore India's independence, and it may not become that great event that it has the potential to become if India does well, if India holds on together, if India becomes an advanced country. Now, the whole point is about where does the debate really begin? The debate really begins in terms of whether or not India can become a rich country, an advanced country that can penetrate the middle income barrier. Very few countries have. Indeed, what we notice is that the 19th century industrializations were many more and successful. Okay, but in the 20th century, barring a handful of countries, and in fact, all of them East Asian, okay, and very few, just a handful, just about 4 countries, no country has actually made the full transition to being an advanced country, and those can be easily counted. Korea, Taiwan, perhaps Thailand, but certainly China, if it continues further, and of course, most importantly, Japan. Okay. Now, if you look at the characteristics of all these countries, there is one thing that stands out. They were all extraordinarily nationalistic. Their policies were very much their own country. For instance, what is not known is that many of these countries insisted and had economic policies which created the basis of a manufacturing within. Not only that, it kept, in a sense, foreign capital out, okay, to a large extent, and allowed foreign capital in only on its own terms. And they were highly nationalistic. Remember, during the Korean crisis, okay, women stood in queues with their gold, okay, to save the nation. Okay. When India had a problem in 1962, our own women also gave gold. I remember, my mother and others, giving their gold to the government and taking it back after many years, okay, in support. So the point is, no country, if you look forward, has been able to successfully, transit to being an advanced country unless it was both nationalistic and its state was capable. Okay? So the two issues of strong nationalism and capability is very important. So the liberal scholars, by poo-pooing nationalism, may be undermining the very basis for our ultimate economic transformation. At the same time, the right wing, by deriding or by undermining democracy or democratic processes, or by undermining institutions, may also be cheating us out of our, destiny, which is to become a great nation. Because after all, we have the highest. We are a country with a civilizational character. So that is the context that I see. How do we bring nationalism and democracy together? How do we have an inclusive democracy? How do we have a nationalism that is inclusive? Now, some may say, why should it be inclusive? There again, I'll take recourse to history just to lay out the point. Renan, the great describer and analyst of nationalism, he has a very interesting thesis which has still not been disproved. What is it? It is that a nation is something which is constituted. It is not history. It is not geography. It is not language, because you can find exceptions to all of them. The point is, what is a nation? A nation is a set of people who get together, create an agenda, a slogan, a royal lie even, okay, around which they come together and they live that lie. Okay? Now, the point is how devious that lie is very important. If that lie is a mere slight violation of the truth, then it's okay. So what is the lie that holds the Americans together? It is that we are a society of migrants, we value democracy, we were the innovators of democracy, we are modern, and we look forward to a great society. What is it that holds the French nation together? Till recently, the Franks fought the Franks fought the Brits in Germany, the Anglos in Germany and in France, and various groups fought each other. Catholics fought Protestants, and tooth and nail. I mean, they went at each other hammer and tongs. But once the French nation was formed, there is a myth that is created. What is that myth? The myth of a society that innovated republicanism, which stands for the good of the people, and which loves the French language and loves everything French, whether you're black, white, or whatever. Now, that's the basic thing. So what could have been India's nation? My own personal view is that the Nehruvian construct is one such thing. What it's saying is, look, we have this great unifying factor. And what is that unifying factor? It cannot be 700 years old, because if you go 700 years back, there is nothing unifying. However, it can be in the struggle that all of us went through, okay, fighting the British. All of us suffered. So our suffering under the British, our successful fight against the British, and our modernity, or swearing in that we will hold forth with the Constitution, would be the basis of our nationalism, which necessarily means that we are willing to forget and forgive the past. We don't go back there. We look forward. And it is this construction that allowed us to come this far. So today, what is the debate about? How much do we, where do we go back? It's absolutely true that over the last 700 years, there has been massive atrocities, committed on, let us say, the way you look at it in today's terms, atrocities by, let's say, Muslims on Hindus. But the reality also is Islam mellowed down, became just one element in society. Okay, we today look at history and try and back project the Shivaji's empire as a Hindu empire, but perhaps it's not true. There's no historical evidence for it. Shivaji was a great emperor, and he got his power. Similarly, the Krishnadevaraya's Vijayanagara. Okay. So the point is that Renan says, and everybody knows that that is true because there are no violations of that all successful nations have been able to deliver on the economic. That is very important. And all successful nations have lived that lie. And that lie, when it's not entirely orthogonal to the truth, okay, works. For instance, in India, when we make the statement that all of us fought the British, that's not strictly speaking true. Okay, but it can be accepted because nearly all of us fought. Okay, and all of us were successful. So there are certain things in the world where you don't talk about the past history, and Europe doesn't talk, France doesn't, Germany doesn't, England do not talk about the past at the school level. At the research level, yes, everything is open. So there is that distinction which needs to be made. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, what has happened in India is history has gone into the popular domain. And populace and what is the common ethic between you and me has been pushed into the background. So the question is, how long will we continue? What is in store for us in the future? Whether the sacrifice of inclusion, okay, will lead to a strong nationalism which can deliver. Okay. Now there again, history tells us something. There is not a single nation which has been able to industrialize, okay, or become an advanced country as long as it hung on to a religious identity. And I think many of the Islamic nations exemplify this best. Okay, there is many of the Middle Eastern countries had the best probability of making the industrial transformation, but it did not happen. Okay, why? Because they chose their identity. Many of them chose an identity, chose the Nehruvian path, but that did not happen. Okay, for a variety of reasons that got cheated. And we can see that despite the best endowments, the Islamic world, or let me put it like this, that a lot of the countries with a potential, okay, that potential has been thwarted. Okay, so it's a moot point. If my own personal belief is that it would be very, very difficult for India on any kind of an identity other than pure modern approach to structuring the relationship between humans, can succeed. Okay, so this is my thought. Okay, however, and a very popular thought, I'm sure. I've laid the ground. Now, it's for Paranjoy to speak his mind and what he thinks is the situation and how it can be taken forward. I'm told he would like to spend a lot more on the media. Okay, so I invite him to talk on the media, and I invite all of y'all, as the discussion progress or as the talk progresses, to raise questions. And there is nothing politically right in this context. You can ask any kind of question. So it's like our classes here at GIM. We start by saying that there is nothing politically right. Please ask every question within the confines of the class. So in that sense, yes, do feel free to raise any and every kind of question, because this is something which needs to come out of our WhatsApp groups and out of our echo chambers. Okay, so Paranjoy, can I ask you to speak? Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, just take it.
Just before Paranjal begins his talk, I'll just give a flow of this slide. So Paranjal will be speaking for around 45 minutes. Then we'll be followed by a few question answer session involving Professor Morris and myself. And then the floor will be open both for the online and offline audience. So Paranjal, you can take it over now.
As you wish. No, this gives me a little flexibility if I can walk around a little bit, sit and stand and jump. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, as long as you don't use the PPT.
I don't have a PPT.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
He'll follow you.
Yeah.
I was told that all those whose PPTs do not have any powerful statement to make, nor do they have any point to add. So this is a silly note on which I want to start. And I want to tell you that before I begin, I want to thank a whole lot of people. I want to thank Dr. Ajit Parulekar. He's the executive head of the Goa Institute of Management. Dr. Sebastian Morris, who I met when we both had hair on our head. And he was certainly leaner and meaner than he is at present. This was many years ago. Dr. Kingshuk Sarkar, I'm meeting him for the first time. He pronounces my surname in the way many Bengalis do. But it's actually pronounced differently. So I'll correct him later. I agree with some of the statements that Professor Sebastian Morris had said, but I also disagree with some of them. So what I'll do is, I had told a few friends, some of them are here, some of them were under a mistaken impression that my talk would begin at 4, which is all right. I have enough time, and maybe I'll speak for a little longer because the topic is really huge. Dozens and dozens of books have been written on the subject. And I can't claim to be an expert on politics in India. With great difficulty, I published a book, my first book, which was in 2004, which is about coalition politics in India. It had a title which was called Divided We Stand, India in a Time of Coalitions. We moved away from that phase, but I'll continue to refer to it because I think it's important to understand that we go through phases and we are never sure when one phase has ended and another has begun. Since all of you are aware that the next general elections are scheduled to take place in the very near future, and my friends who are unlike you people, not so well educated, as Ravish Kumar would point out, they've been, okay, I'll stand. Ravish Kumar coined that famous phrase, WhatsApp University. So none of you have been educated in WhatsApp University. You are truly privileged. The whole bunch of people, a very large section of India are today, have been educated and continue to be educated in WhatsApp University. And this is going to be a subject on which I'm going to try and talk to you at some detail, simply because I think the media has changed politics and continues to change politics in ways which we could never have imagined. So what I'll try and do is I want to spend a little time telling you why this country is unique and why I disagree with my friend if he would like to describe India as the greatest democracy. It can still be the greatest democracy. But right now we are very far from that situation. So I'll talk a little bit about India in very general terms, and I hope what I will be saying won't be dumbing you down because I'll be stating the obvious. I'll talk a little bit about politics in this country and thereafter also talk a little bit about the economy, because I believe the politics and economics can never really be bifurcated or separated. They are very, very closely interlinked with each other. They have been always and continue to be. And because of my own background as a person who's been a part of the media now for 46 years, I will spend a bit of time talking about the working of the media and mass communications. I taught for 19 consecutive years at the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. The course was titled very simply, Media and Society. The subtitle was long and some would say rather convoluted. It was about the economics, politics, ethics, and technologies of mass communications. You'll be happy to note that after having taught there every year for 19 consecutive years, this year they haven't called me. So instead, I am truly honored and privileged that I'm getting to speak here to you. That doesn't matter. If somebody doesn't like my face, it's fine. I am entitled to not like their face as well. We were told that this is the beauty of democracy. Professor Sebastian Morris talked about how women in India got the right to exercise their franchise before several countries in Europe, including Switzerland. Women didn't have the right to vote in Switzerland long after Indian women had the right to vote. The first general election in India took place in 1951 and actually went on till 1952. But what is unique about India? Is there something unique about India as a country, as a nation state? As Sebastian talked about, there were no dearth of people in 1947 and well after 1947 who seriously thought that India cannot survive as a nation state, as a single entity. Even today, people are saying, no, we have to have there is a north-south debate, a north-south divide, which we've never seen before. No, we've seen this and many other divides in this country, and we'll continue to see them. But let us try and briefly look at why people thought India could not survive as a country, as a nation state. First was caste. I mean, it's not that there are no caste systems in other parts of the world, but the kind of caste system that we saw in India, especially Hindu India, and that made us actually different from other countries in the world. I mean, there are different kinds of caste system, they call it different names, whatever you want to call it, but this kind of dividing society on the basis of caste, to a great extent, is unique to India. Not completely unique, but so you have four categories. The Brahmins, there's the priestly class, the thinkers, so-called intellectuals, Buddhijibis. Then the Kshatriyas, the warriors, the fighters. They say Japan is the only country in the world where the warrior class, the samurai, became the entrepreneurs, and that explains the success of Japan as an economy. I'm just digressing, I should say. Then you had the Vaishyas, or the trading community, or the business community. And then you had the Shudras, the workers, the laborers, the downtrodden, the underprivileged. But India is far, far more complex than dividing India into four castes, or four sets of castes or subcastes. Even as we talk, there is this huge debate going on about the need or otherwise for a caste census. Why should we have a caste census? Why not have a caste census? Even as we talk today, there is this huge debate that continues and continues. It's been going on for several years now on whether you need reservations or what kind of reservations in educational institutions, in government institutions, and so on and so forth. Whether reservation itself is a form of affirmative action or negative discrimination. I mean, I'm not going to get into these debates because these are huge debates and these debates are unresolved. But let's come to India. Once again, India, that is Bharatvarsh. Bharatvarsh, that is India. I asked my young friends, because India, after all, is a young country. We have been told that India has become the most populous country on planet Earth. We have been told. We don't know. Why don't we not know? Because for the first time since 1981, when the British held the census of India, we've not had a census which was scheduled to be held in 2021. Why has it not been held? There are several reasons that have been given, including the pandemic. But I stand corrected if I'm wrong, but this is the first time the census is not happening when it's supposed to happen. It has been delayed. We still don't know, by the way, when the census will happen. When we've been told delimitation will happen, and people are very, very concerned that after delimitation, those parts of India, especially those in southern India that have progressed better than other states in terms of healthcare, education, that they're going to be quote unquote penalized for doing well. And that many people are arguing that this will actually widen and exacerbate the so-called north-south debate. But let's look at some very, very simple facts. You ask a person, pick a random person and ask a person here, what is India's national language? Don't be surprised if most people tell you it's Hindi. I mean, how many young Indians have heard of the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India, which gives a list of 21 languages? And English is not one of them. Ask a person, have you counted how many languages are there in your currency note? Can you identify them? "17 languages, including English." How come there are 17 languages in the currency note and 21 languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India? Simple. Script. Manipur, the state of Manipur, in the currency note, it's using the Bengali language, the Bengali script. We are dealing with complexities of the kind which no country in the world has. I tell you, no country in the world has so many languages on its currency note, and no country in the world has so many languages that get described as quote unquote official languages. What is official? The government uses it. Yes, there is a difference between Rashtra Bhasha and Raj Bhasha, the language of the state, the language of governance, the language of the government. But these differences are often not known by large numbers of people. And this, to me, is also this ignorance. And sometimes this ignorance is deliberately propagated by vested interests and vested groups, is also creating a certain problem. Because there is a section of a section of our rulers, let me put it this way, who would want India to be more homogeneous. They would argue that India needs to come together closer. You're not with me? You are a part of the Tukre gang. That means you want this country to be fragmented. Tukre. Now you see, why is this the case? Why is it that we became politically independent on the 15th of August, 1947? Why is it that it is important for us to be one nation? Desh ka akhandata. Why is it so important? I'm going back to the pointers that Professor Sebastian Morris made. Why is this is so linked? Your notion of nationalism, Rashtravad. Who is a nationalist? Who is not a nationalist? Your concept of nationhood in India makes India unique. Should we be proud of the fact that we are the most diverse, the most heterogeneous, the most plural of any country on this planet, on planet Earth? We have roughly 200 countries, nation states. There are nation states, small island states, whose population is less than 1/4 that of Goa, certainly much less than Delhi, but they're called countries, of course. But when you look at large countries across the world, or you look at any country across the world, there is no country as diverse, as plural, as heterogeneous as India. So it's not just the language. It's not just the way we look, the way we dress, what we eat. It's not just that. It's not our geography. It's not just our religion. I mean, yeah, just look at religion, and we will come to religion later also. If you just go by the last census that was held, which was 2011, roughly 82% of the population of this country said we are Hindu. What does Hinduism mean? What kind of Hindu? We are not even getting into that. We are saying we are Hindu. Roughly 14% say we are Muslim. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? 14% of 1.4 billion, 140 crore people. What does this mean? It means simply that because of our size, there are more Muslims in India than in all but 2 countries of the world, Indonesia and Pakistan. At one point of time, in fact, when Pakistan was not divided into Bangladesh, the demographic pattern changed. Take Pakistan. How many of you are aware that one state in India has more people than the entire population of Pakistan? And I mean India's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh. I'm going to come back to Uttar Pradesh because of the significance of Uttar Pradesh in the politics of this country. I mean, out of 543 members of the Lok Sabha, 80 come from Uttar Pradesh. But look just at Uttar Pradesh. Is it a state? Is it a province? Is it a country? 1 out of 6 Indians live in Uttar Pradesh. If Uttar Pradesh was an independent country, there would be only 5 countries in the world with a higher population. The PRC, the People's Republic of China, India minus Uttar Pradesh, Indonesia, the United States of America, and Brazil. Again, when we look at the US, why does India have so many states? When should India have so many states? The US has many, many more states. So, the point I'm trying to make here, we have 31 state assemblies, including union territories, as on September 2023. Now, I'm sort of moving a little back and forth to make a few points. I talked about Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh has more people than Pakistan. Great, superb. But then, why is it that Uttar Pradesh, in terms of several indicators, say healthcare, education, is behind so much of India? Why? These are important questions. And as we were informally discussing before this formal conversation, federalism, has it become stronger? Has it become weaker? I would say it's become weaker. Today, south of the Vindhyas, political leaders are sincerely of the view that they are being discriminated against. Why? And those who point this out, they're saying they are the one who want India to break up. We are living in a post-truth world. What is true and what is half true, and this has also got a lot to do with the media, the media has played a huge role in creating misinformation, disinformation, half-truths, and this so-called post-truth world in which we are living in. Let me step back a little bit and talk about elections in this country and politics in this country. Yes, there is no doubt in anybody's mind that India is the biggest country in the world, biggest in terms of population, where elections are conducted at an all India level every 5 years. There have been exceptions. We'll come to that. How important are these elections? And now we have a big debate happening. One nation, one election. When the Lok Sabha elections are going to take place in a few months from now, it'll be over by the 3rd week of May. We will know by that time whether, besides Odisha and besides Andhra Pradesh, 2 more states will have elections with the Lok Sabha. I'm not saying they will happen. Which are these 2 states? Maharashtra and also Haryana. Both these states are supposed to have elections early. And both have BJP states. So people saying they can bring forward the election. I'm not saying it will happen. Let's look at the numbers. India, unlike several countries in the world, has a very, very high voter turnout. More than 2/3. The number has varied over the years, but more than 2 out of 3 persons who are eligible to vote are voting, actually voting. If you go by the figures that have been put out by the Election Commission of India, who's eligible to vote? Any and everybody who turned 18 on the 1st of January this year is eligible to vote. And of course, everybody after that. This is important because what is the key difference between the 2 most populous parts, 2 most populous countries in the planet, China and India? I mean, China has and India together, they have roughly 40% of the population on the planet. What is the key difference? It's the demographic profile of these 2 countries. China, the median age is roughly 30. I mean, again, the demographers have differences, 38 or 39. In India, it's 28 or 29. Half your population is below that age. So we are young. We are a very young country. And therefore, these numbers are very important. In 2019, close to 900 million people were eligible to vote. This time, this number will be about 1 billion. Let me move back and forth. I'm going to do this throughout, and if I'm accused of being a person who can't stick to the topic, I stand guilty. अब वहां दे दीजिए, हम बाद में खाएंगे, अभी नहीं खाएंगे, बाद हमारा बंद हो जाएगा, लोग वैसे भी सो रहे हैं तो चाय इन लोगों को पिला दीजिए, ज्यादा करके समोसा खिला दीजिए। क्या बताएं, एक समय राष्ट्रीय जनता दल वालों कह रहे थे कि जब तक समोसा में है आलू तब तक बिहार में है लालू। क्या हो गया यार, लालू को जेल जाना पड़ा, उसका बेटी का किडनी है उसका पेट में। जमाना बदल जाता है और जबरदस्त बदल जाते हैं। I mean, we are a country, we were supposed to have a mixed economy. Pandit Nehru thought that India will have the best of capitalism, the best of socialism. Now many people are saying actually we got the worst of capitalism and the worst of socialism. So instead of a mixed economy, had a mixed up economy. Now the question is, will Ms. Modi ji beat Pandit Nehru's record as the Prime Minister, longest serving Prime Minister of India? I don't know. I'm not a soothsayer, I'm not a psephologist, मैं ज्योतिषी नहीं हूँ. But these are questions which are worth looking at seriously. Let's go back. So, this country is different from China. But more than that, this country is different from all other countries in the world. As was very famously said by an economist, you will, I think, be able to tell you, Sebastian will be able to tell you, that everything that you say is true about India, the opposite is also true. Who was it? Gunnar Myrdal, Asian Drama, or Joan Robinson, or somebody. I'm sorry, I don't remember who was the person who made this very well-known statement. I mean, there are many cliches we hear. One of the cliches we hear is a week is a long time in politics. So everything I say today will change after 1 week. But one thing that makes India very, very different is that we can't compare India with any other country in the world because of our wide differences. I mean, the food we eat. How many Indians know that Christianity came to Kerala before it reached what the British call the Middle East and others call West Asia? How many know? None. A lot of people don't know this. So the diversity in every sense is unique. But what is absolutely unusual is that we have roughly 17% of the world's population. Is that correct? Or is it 14%? 17%. We have barely 2.5% of the land area in this country. We are the most densely populated country in the world. Which is the most densely populated part of the world? Dharavi in Mumbai. 2.5 square kilometers, roughly a million people. The most densely populated, most congested part of the world. And it's interesting what is happening today in Dharavi. I'm working on a project in that. India's richest man is supposed to redevelop it. Will he be successful or not is a bigger question. Now, I will now go straight now into the subject that I'm going to be talking to you about most of the time. Rajniti. Politics in this country. And first, I want to look a little bit at the Indian National Congress, the country which was at the forefront of India's freedom movement, independence movement that made India into a quote unquote a politically independent country. Many of the socialists kept saying, you know, we might be politically independent, but we are not economically independent. They went to the extent, ye azadi jhoota, Ram Manohar Lohia's famous statement. I don't know, he's also falsely attributed to have described Indira Gandhi as a dumb doll, gungi gudiya. It stuck very deeply into her and she took revenge on them, but we'll come to that in a short while. Why is the Indian National Congress set up in 1885 so important? it has been out of power for very short periods of time until May 2014. It's very easy for us to remember the periods of time when the Congress was not in power, rather than to recount to you the time the Congress was in power. And then the Congress, as Rajni Kothari famously said, was not just a political party. It was a system. It was an organization. It was a structure. It was the great banyan tree, which had all kinds of ideologies in it, left, right, center. Unlike the Bharatiya Janata Party, which has had a far more clearly defined political ideology. The Indian National Congress was out of power for the first time, almost 40 years after the country became, no, 30 years, 47, 77, 30 years. Yes, almost 30 years, March 1977 to January 1980. And here I'm going to, as we discuss it, I'm going to tell you how our politicians and our electorate surprise everybody, including themselves. Example, even today there's a dispute. Why did Indira Gandhi call for elections in March 1977? She announced it in January 1977, and the elections were held in March 1977, and she lost the elections. Now, why did she hold? Why did she hold those elections? We have a dozen theories, but nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Indira Gandhi is not here to tell the story. My son told me when he was in class 10, whenever somebody tells you nobody knows, I have a poem. We are talking about elephants in Jamnagar, but I'm going to tell you about the elephant in the room. Nobody knows how the elephant blows his nose. Does he do a tissue on a tissue? Or does he simply wipe it on his toes? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. I was just trying to be funny, but only one or two people have laughed. I will try and not crack any silly jokes as I move on. We are talking about deadly serious subjects like the Indian National Congress and how it is in this situation where it is at present. In 1984, after Indira Gandhi was killed by her own bodyguard, and Rajiv Gandhi became India's youngest prime minister at the age of 40. The Congress got 48% of the votes that were cast. 48, almost half. Never before in the history of India did the ruling party, together with its ally, the All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam, then led by MGR, they had more than 3/4 of all the seats in the Lok Sabha. Remember what happened before all this happened. Remember who imagined that Morarji Desai, Charan Singh, their governments would not last. In January 1977, I was a witness to a rally in Ram Lila Maidan, led by the late Jayaprakash Narayan. On his left was the right, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Lal Krishan Advani. On his right was the left, Jyoti Basu, Indrajit Gupta. And in the middle was Babu Jagjeevan Ram, Hemati Nandan Bahuguna. And in order to divert attention from the public attention, Doordarshan had a monopoly. They played a very popular film those days. It was called Bobby. Vidya Charan Shukla thought people would stay at home and watch the film. Big hit. The late Rishi Kapoor was 1/4 of his size at that point of time. Dimple was all of sweet 16. They were running around a chinar tree, singing "Hum tum ek kamre mein band hai aur chabi kho jaye." The power of the media, the power of television, but Indira Gandhi, what happened? She lost. People laughed. Arey yaar, Bobby hum dekhenge. I don't want to watch it on the small screen. So the point I'm trying to make here, people are so surprised how so many people, completely disparate, ideologically disparate, they came together. And Indira Gandhi defeated them. Who remembers who defeated Sanjay Gandhi? I don't. Who remembers who defeated Indira Gandhi? Raj Narayan, yes, I remember. I was a student. I was a student at the University of Delhi. And those days Doordarshan would be shown only for small periods of time. I'm deliberately bringing in the media into politics again and again. And we were listening to All India Radio. And we were waiting. My friends had come from Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg, where all the newspaper offices of Delhi used to be. And they said, Indira Gandhi has lost the election. Sanjay Gandhi has lost it. I said, come on, yeah. Want official confirmation. And here we were, 3 o'clock in the morning, listening to All India Radio. And it came on the All India Radio suddenly at 3 o'clock. Indira Gandhi has lost the election. Sanjay Gandhi has lost the elections. I was in Jubilee Hall. And beer bottles were opened. And Diwali crackers were being burst suddenly. First time I voted, I was all of 21 years old. And they didn't call them RJs, radio jockeys. But he had a good sense of humor. You know, what they would do is they would have a news bulletin for 5 minutes, then they would play songs, Vivid Bharati songs. So he played the good one. Savere wale gari se chale jayenge. Kuch leke jayenge, kuch deke jayenge, savere wale gari se chale jayenge. Now, at that time, when Morarji Desai became the compromise prime minister, and then who thought Charan Singh would become the one and only Prime Minister of India who's never won a vote of confidence on the Lok Sabha? He's been given Bharat recently. Chaudhry Charan Singh, farmers' leader. Who could have imagined that as the decade of the 80s began, Indira Gandhi would be back in power? That she would ride an elephant. I keep talking about elephants in Belchi, where there would be a caste atrocity. Indian politics was filled with surprises, and I will tell you more of those surprises. There was another short period between December 1989 and May 1991 when two other individuals became Prime Minister of India. One was Vishwanath Pratap Singh and the other was Chandrasekhar. But who could have imagined that India's youngest ever Prime Minister, Rahul Gandhi, would lose the election from having the biggest ever majority? Whether, I don't know now, today we are all more clever by hindsight. We all can think of 10 different reasons. So it was the Bofors scandal, it was Shah Bano, it was unlocking the locks of the Babri Masjid. The point is the same. Rajiv Gandhi, sorry, who talked about ridding Congress of the power brokers, 100 years of the Congress, 1985, what happened? How did he lose? Why did he lose? And the way he did. He didn't want to be a politician. His wife didn't want him to become what she didn't want to be a politician. Sanjay Gandhi was being groomed, but Sanjay Gandhi died in that air crash. Okay, I'll just come. Now, after Chandrasekhar's government falls, comes Rajiv Gandhi's assassination in Sri Perumbudur. Now, many people have analyzed the way people voted. You remember in 1984, after Indira Gandhi was assassinated, there was a wave, a sympathy wave in her favor. But again, you look at Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, the Lok Sabha elections were held in two phases. The first one was before he was assassinated, and the second phase was after he was assassinated. And if you just look at the data, you'll find that there's a big difference. And it can even be argued that if he was not assassinated, maybe the Congress would not have done as well as it did. But remember, from that time onwards, 1991, we see, it started earlier in 1989, we are seeing the beginning of a phase of coalition politics in this country, where people who think differently, political parties who have different ideologies, are learning to coexist with each other. Again, who was the Prime Minister? Narasimha Rao. Who thought? Narasimha Rao himself said, I never thought I would become the Prime Minister of India. Who thought that that year there would be a series of economic policy changes? You call them economic reforms, you call them liberalization, which changed the working of India's economy. We'll come to that in greater detail if you wish to. But what happened? Today, just recently, you've overturned a judgment pertaining to Narasimha Rao. He didn't have a majority. His was a minority government. And to put it very politely, he bought up enough members of parliament to have a majority. But that is now, and the Supreme Court ruled that whatever you do on the floor of the House, it cannot be challenged in a court of law, including taking bribes. And interestingly, a lot of people, I mean, they said yes. They said, yes, we took bribes. Then things happened which completely stunned everybody. Economic liberalization and the demolition of the Babri Masjid, the 6th of December. What happened after that? Where were the riots? In the city of Mumbai. Far away from Ayodhya or Faizabad, far away. More than, I think, roughly for 1400, 1500. Why did it happen there? Something to do with the Shiv Sena or whatever, but the point is it happened in Mumbai. The entertainment capital, the commercial capital, the trade capital, the financial capital. Why did the riots happen there? Unanswered questions. Today we can explain why it happened. But at that time, nobody could have ever anticipated that this would happen. Then Narasimha Rao lost power. And Manmohan Singh was his finance minister. Manmohan Singh won elections. But as a finance minister, he got completely a free hand by Narasimha Rao to do what he thought best. And the center of India's polity in some senses shifted rightwards. And you could argue that the old norms of what is private, what is public, all started changing. Some things changed, but some things didn't change also. We can talk about those also. But these are subjects which are huge subjects. Paucity of time prevents me from going into it some scale. What? Something happened in May 1996 which nobody ever could have thought. In 1 month, India had 3 prime ministers. Did Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee ever thought that his first government would last 13 days? Did he ever think? Did Sri H.D. Devegowda, Haradhanhalli, Doddegowda, Devegowda, humble farmer, did he ever think he would become Prime Minister of India? He said, no, I never thought. BP Singh was suffering from cancer. Jyoti Basu's own party said, no, he can't become the Prime Minister. And so, almost by chance, Devegowda became the Prime Minister. And then before he knew what was going on, there was a man in a hurry. He was a non-Gandhi Nehru family man called Sitaram Keshri who pulled the rug under his carpet. And Indra Kumar Gujral could never have imagined that he would become the Prime Minister of India, but he did. On this issue of Gandhi Nehru family, Parivarvad, which Mr. Modi has and the BJP repeatedly talks about. What are the facts? Till May 2014, there were only a few brief periods Shastri, famous slogan, Jai, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. Amazing man. Epitomize honesty. I mean, you can't think today that there was a man like Lal Bahadur Shastri who was the Prime Minister of India. I mean, not just his resignation because of the railway accident when he was railway minister. Then we had between May 1991 and May 1996, P.V. Narasimha Rao. These are non-members of the Gandhi-Nehru family. And then between 2004 and 2014, you had Manmohan Singh. And I must remind you of something about Manmohan Singh. I've been a critic of him. Today he's retired from politics. But he said history will took place in November 1984, when 3,000 Sikhs were systematically killed to death in India's capital. Many of them were Congress, some of them are behind bars. A lot of people were in collusion, some people were, RSS people were also in collusion with them. But Manmohan Singh actually stood in the Lok Sabha and says, I bow my head in shame as a Sikh, as a Sardarji. This is India for you. We've heard of the heads of government of Canada and Australia apologizing for the atrocities of the past. People are still saying the British give back our money and not just the Kohinoor or the Peacock Throne. But history, memory, how does it all treat us? What happened then? What happened to the Indian National Congress? From a high of 48% vote share in 1984, by 2014 and 2019, the vote share of the Congress had come down below 20%. What happened to India's GOP, grand old party, that became what it is today? I mean, people said the Congress thinks it's entitled. The Congress only believes in the family. I mean, they forget about a gentleman called Jai Amit Shah, who's sitting on some sports bodies, and the piles of cash he's sitting on is unbelievable. That's a different story. But the point is, many people who criticize the Congress say that it believe that it is the only country that can rule a country which is as diverse as India. But the Congress lost its character, its banyan tree character, its umbrella character. The Congress system that Rajni Kothari talked about, it was no longer the natural party of governance. Scheduled castes, scheduled tribes left the Congress, went to other parties, including the Bahujan Samaj Party. The Sikhs left the Congress. The Muslims left the Congress. By April 2002, the Indian National Congress controlled half the states in this country, half. You thought coalition politics was an aberration? Before the 2024 elections, out of the 31 state assemblies and union territories, Congress just had 2 those days. It didn't have Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. Of course, it was a part of coalition governments in Tamil Nadu and Jharkhand. And it had by then was about to lose power in Maharashtra. Let's move on. I'm taking a little longer. I hope you don't mind. Please. By when do you want me to finish it? Another 10 minutes? No. Okay, fine. So then in 10 minutes, I'll quickly round up. I'm not going to talk about the economy, mixed up economy, capitalism, socialism. I'll quickly spend 5 minutes telling you about the Supreme Leader of India, Narendra Modi, and 5 minutes talking about the media in India. But there are many other things which I'm going to hold on for the hold back for the question answer session. What is the reason for Shri Narendra Modi's success? Huge success for the last 10 years. How did he become stronger in 2019? In 2014, the Bharatiya Janata Party on its own had 32% of the vote, and the National Democratic Alliance, the coalition, had 38% of the vote. In 2019, the Bharatiya Janata Party got 38% of the vote. These are rough figures. I'm rounding off these figures. And the NDA got 45% of the vote. Right? How is it that Mr. Modi was so successful in personalizing Indian politics? That India almost started resembling America, where at the end of the day, after the primaries and everything, two persons are contesting. So it became Main Banam Pappu. Of course, now it is different that he stopped calling him Pappu after he walked for about 3,500 kilometers. At 53, he can do that, no? 25, 30 kilometers a day. He's 53. He's about 20 years younger than Modi ji. But Modi ji's contribution is that it's not just Hindu nationalism. He has personalized Indian politics. So you don't talk that India has a multi-party system. Yes, Professor Sebastian Morris will know much more than me certain aberrations of the kind of system that we borrowed from the British called the Westminster style of parliamentary democracy. First past the post. First you cross the post, then winner takes all. So it's first past the post. It has its aberrations, and we can argue all night as to whether it's better or worse for a country like India, proportionate representation, the kind of system followed in France and Germany and Canada and New Zealand and Australia, but we'll leave that for another occasion. The point to note is that the first past the post system exaggerates both victories and defeats. I mean, I'm putting it somewhat simplistically, but that's the case. But this is exactly what has happened. Mr. Modi is different from Mr. Vajpayee. Just remember one thing, which a lot of people have forgotten, and I'm sorry, I was doing a chronological account and I forgot to mention this point. The first government of Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee lasted 13 days. His second government lasted 13 months. What happened? Who remembers that date? It was a historical date in India and the world, the 17th of April, 1999. Shri Vajpayee lost a vote of confidence in the lower house of parliament by one vote. 1 out of 543. You cannot have a closer context than that. You think it would happen today? I said, no, I don't think it would ever happen. Even then we had heard about Aya Ram, Gaya Ram, and poor horses. Yeah, they're nice animals. We call them horse trading. Why do we call them horse trading? When you're buying and selling our members of the Legislative Assembly and members of Parliament, why should we call them horses? I mean, it's an insult to horses. But we'll move on. So Mr. Modi has been eminently successful in projecting the image of the Supreme Leader. The inauguration of the Ram Mandir is one part of that. Hindu nationalism is a part of that. The fact that over 80 crore Indians, their families, assuming about roughly 5 to a family, they're getting free food. They're getting 5 kilograms of rice or wheat or 2.5 kilograms of chana ke dal or chickpeas. First time. It's a separate matter, but two of his decisions crippled India's economy. Demonetization, Notebandi, in November 2016. The other was the lockdown and the lies that were uttered. On the 31st of March 2020, when India entered the most harsh lockdown ever in the world, the Solicitor General of India read out a statement by the Home Secretary of India to the Chief Justice of India. What did he say? There is not a single migrant laborer on the highways of India. Boy, the big lie. What a lie. For the first time in the history of this country, we saw a reverse migration from the cities to the villages. Never before. People wonder whether there was such an internal displacement of people even during the partition. So, Modi ji's track record, we will discuss in some detail. What we'll discuss and we'll talk about it in some detail is the media, and I'll tell you about the media. I'm not getting into it. I'm saying we will know the dates of the elections very soon, in a few weeks from now. Maybe 2 weeks from now, or less than 2 weeks, even 10 days from now. I mean, if you go by the past record, 2004, 2009, 2014, 2019, elections will get over by, they have to get over by the middle of May. I'm sorry about this. I forgot to mention one huge surprise. Bharat Uday, India shining. Why did Mr. Vajpayee, why did Mr. Advani bring forward the election of 2004 by 4 months and lost the election? Why? Obviously, they thought they'll win, but why did they take such a risk? We'll move on. Lok Sabha results of 2019. 5 states are going to be very, very important in influencing the outcome of the elections. Include 4 of the biggest states and 1 smaller state, Uttar Pradesh. The Bharatiya Janata Party on its own got 62 seats. With the Apna Dal, they got 2. So they had 64 out of 80. The Samajwadi Party got 5. The Bahujan Samaj Party got 10 and the Indian National Congress 1. Out of 80 in 2014, the BJP plus NDA got 72 out of 80. So after the Ram Mandir's inauguration, few will be surprised if the BJP improves its performance, or the NDA improves its performance in Uttar Pradesh. What happened in Maharashtra is a big question. It's the second largest state in India in terms of Lok Sabha seats. It has 48 Lok Sabha seats. The Bharatiya Janata Party had 23. The undivided Shiv Sena had 18. The Nationalist Congress Party had 4, but the Nationalist Congress Party was united. The Indian National Congress had 1. The MIM had 1 and the Independent 1. The independent person went to the BJP later. The third largest state in terms of Lok Sabha seats is Bengal, the state I come from. The Trinamool Congress has 22. The Bharatiya Janata Party 18. The Indian National Congress 2. Then comes Bihar. Tamil Nadu also is there, but I mean excluding Tamil Nadu because the Bharatiya Janata Party or the constituent of the NDA is relatively weak in this state. In Bihar, the Janata Dal United has 16, the Bharatiya Janata Party has 17, the LJP, that's Loktantric Janata Party. Paswan, the party that Ramvilas Paswan ji had set up, has 6. So the Congress has 1 out of 40. Karnataka, the BJP plus an independent has 26. The Janata Dal Secular has 1. The Indian National Congress has 1. So in Karnataka, the Congress has 1 seat. In Bihar, the Congress has 1 seat. In Bengal, 2. So the outcome in these states are going to determine what happens to the polity in India. I will try and answer your question if you have specific questions on this, but very few of us know what will happen, whether Modi ji will not just become a prime minister for the 3rd time, whether he'll have a term that is longer than that of Jawaharlal Nehru. So I have not talked about the media. If you want to give me 5 minutes, I'll talk about the media, or we'll talk about it later. We'll ask questions. Okay. The media has played a huge role in India. I mean, we are the only country in the world with,
Why don't we sit so we can?
yeah, fine. There are about 600 million users of WhatsApp.
Yeah.
600 million users of WhatsApp. So the media has a very, very important role to play in influencing the elections. And I'll be happy to discuss these in greater detail. So I wish to thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. I'm sorry if you think I've rambled on, ramble. But I've tried to make a few general observations and a few, tried to point out why India is unique and why it's so difficult to predict the outcome of the elections. But the Indian voter always throws up surprises. This time too, they could throw up surprises. Many things could happen which none of us can anticipate. Thank you so much once
But
again.
please.
I'll sit down.
We'll raise some questions. Yeah. So first of all, thanks a ton. And any questions, yeah. There are hardly. Okay. I guess. So any questions, I'll pass the mic. Anybody? Yeah, sure.
Dr. okay, Mr. Yeah, Mr. Pran-
Your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Anshul. I teach economics here. So Mr. Pranjoy, while we were discussing about the politics, one of the thing we are observing is a lot of polarization in India. Either you are with BJP or you are against BJP or right wing, whatever. You can't be in the middle. You can't say that I'll vote as per the policies or the manifestos. One side. So why do you think that happen? Is it like the mean voter forum we studies in economics that both the sides are trying to eliminate the middle one because that's the section which actually decides who's the ruler, and that's the one which demands the what you call the welfare. And in this context, what do you think is the future of the parties like Swaraj Party by Yogendra Yadav or Suraj Party by Prashant Kishore? Do they have any future?
Okay. All right. Let me answer your question. Yes, I will agree with you that the kind of
One second. Can we take a few more?
you want to take a few
No,
more?
just note down the question.
Yeah, I
If we
made
can,
notes. Yes. Okay, fine.
Yeah. So anybody else? Yeah, Rakesh.
I had a question. Okay. Yeah, so Modi ji seemed to be going almost like Indira Gandhi way, larger than life persona, only one leader in the country, nobody else counts, moving to the presidential system, etc. stuff. When we reflect back, Indira ji almost became no need to be democratically elected leader. And one school of thought is that had it not been for the family planning excesses, the parliament would stay forever. Is there a danger of our even getting out in the non-election mode? Forget about whether we are full democracy or not. Are we getting into a situation where the larger than life leader became some like a Chinese model?
Yeah, just catch this.
Your name, sir?
Yeah, sir, Karman.
Your name, please?
Karman.
K-
So Karman.
Amen. Karman. Yes, please.
So, sir, I come from a media and communication background. In that, we have the two-step flow of communication theory, where there are like opinion leaders, and then they influence people who don't have a very well-formed opinion. Suddenly, this is my personal observation, these opinion leaders have opened up very unabashedly in recent times, in the last 10 years, I would say. Do you think it is because of external influence? And where were these?
I'm not able to understand your question properly. Who are these opinion leaders? Are you talking about influencers on the media?
So common people. Say, for example, the person standing at the tapri who has an influence on 10 other people who do not consume media directly, right? But this one person's opinion is is very crucial. Now, is it that before 2014, these people did not exist, or what is your opinion on this opinion leader?
Okay. Okay. Let me answer these three questions. I'm here for as long as you want me to be here. Will one of you come and consume the sandwich?
Just leave it. Just leave it. Don't let it bother you.
I'll be tempted to have it.
Then go ahead.
No, I won't. लालची, मैं बहुत लालची हूँ. And a very famous leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party, Shri Lalji Tandon, was wrongly called Lalchi Tandon. He was not at all Lalchi, unlike me. Okay, Anshul ji, let me respond to your question. Yes, I agree with you. We are seeing a certain kind of polarization, especially on religious lines, like we have not seen for a long time. I would say even 80 years. 80 years when the Indian subcontinent was partitioned, and two states, the state I come from, Bengal and Punjab, bore the brunt of this partition. But when partition happened, we saw a huge rise in Islamophobia within the Hindu community in India and the Sikh community. Today, I see, as a person whose parents came from what is today Bangladesh, what was then East Bengal, I see Islamophobia in India reaching a peak, like it did 80 years. So in that sense, in this sense of Hindu-Muslim relations, we seem to have regressed 80 years. Why do I say this? Why should some people say Hindu khatre mein hai? Hindu kyun khatre mein hai? You are 82% of the population. What is your notion of democracy? Is 82% always right? Or is it the obligation in a democracy of being able to respect the wishes of the minority, their aspirations? This to me is something that has happened in the recent past. The trends were there for a long, long time, but it seems to have peaked. So, as far as I'm concerned, the second part of your question is easy to answer. Swaraj Abhiyan, Yogendra Yadav, he was a part of the Aam Aadmi Party. He, Prashant Bhushan and others left. He's firmly with the Congress. He's walked many 100 kilometers with Rahul Gandhi. If you read his writings, he's quite clear that he's with the Congress. PK or Prashant Kishore was very unhappy that Nitish Kumar had sidelined him. He wants to make Bihar his karma bhumi, or place of work. Prashant Kishore ji is a very astute political analyst. I would say he's the first political, what's the right word for it? I mean, he's an American style political, no, that fixer bol sakte hain. Wo thoda, he'll be really angry with me, but okay, he's a political fixer. But the point is, he's a political manager who works for money. So as a political manager, Shri PK, also known as Prashant Kishore, he's the first of its kind. That he said that I'll work for you. You give me money, I'll work for you. You look at the people whose elections he has been only unsuccessful on a few occasions. He's worked with Narendra Modi. He's worked with the Congress and Samajwadi Party where he didn't do well. He's worked with Trinamool Congress. He's worked with YSR. And he's worked with others as well. He's a very astute political observer, but now he wants to make his karma bhumi, Bihar. And now you look back. Why did Nitish Kumar made him his number 2 and then told him, okay, Tata? Because Nitish Kumar is unique. Paltu Baba is unique. He is the only citizen of India who has been sworn in as chief minister of a state 10 times. Are baap re baap. Honey, 1.5 years ago, he went to the Rajyapal. And before the Rajyapal could inform people he was supposed to inform, he had brought a second letter from him, I'm going to support him. So Tejashwi on the floor of the assembly made some good ones, good wisecracks at him. He said, Nitish ji, we worked for 1.5 years. You could have told us you were going. So you didn't tell us. And he said, Nitish ji, we are hearing a lot that Modi ji is giving guarantees. Guarantee de rahe bahut. Can Modi ji give us a guarantee that Nitish Kumar ek baar aur nahi palat jayenge? So that's quite interesting. But you know, it's really how the people of Bihar act. I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, out of 40 Lok Sabha seats, the Congress has won. The Rashtriya Janata Dal, which is the largest party in the assembly, has 0. This time we'll see what happens, because after, unlike the past elections, the Congress, the RJD and the left are together. Acha. Modi ji, Modi ji, Modi ji, Godi ji, no, Modi ji. Sir, you have raised a very important question. And thanks to your questions, I'm remembering things I should have said. Have you ever wondered why Modi ji has been hardly critical of Indira Gandhi and very critical of her father? Is it, and I raise a question, does he find something similar in Indira ji's personality and his? You are right, you're right, Rakesh ji. Sanjay Gandhi is Nasbandi. Many of us said Nasbandi, look at the political impact it had. How come Notebandi had no impact like Nasbandi? Why is Modi ji being so critical of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister, and not his daughter? Very, very important questions you raised, and very honestly, I personally believe that after Indira Gandhi, nobody has had that larger than life persona. You see, Indira Gandhi, one of the general secretaries of the Congress party, Devkanta Barua, famously remarked, India is Indira, Indira is India, and India is Indira. Some of Modi ji's fellow travelers have also said, Modi ji Bhagwan ka avatar hai. I believe, of course I believe, that 1/4 of India seriously believes that Modi ji is Bhagwan ka avatar. By the way, I also said that once in a different context. I had said it, that Modi ji Bhagwan ka avatar hai, Modi ji Mahan hai. So I do believe that if 38% of the people, of voters of this country voted for the Bharatiya Janata Party, this means half the Hindus, roughly 40%, say 40% out of 82%. I'm giving you ballpark figures. I'm not sure if all the people who voted for Modi ji in 2019 and the 32% that voted in 2014 all think he's Bhagwan ka avatar, but quite a few do, I believe. That the difference between God and man is that he cannot make a mistake. And Modi ji therefore can't make a mistake. Karman, I'll give a slightly long answer to your question. The media has changed Indian society and India's polity like it's never before. We still have 100,000 newspapers registered with the Registrar of Newspapers of India. We are the only country in the world where before 1991 we had one broadcaster. Today we have 900 broadcasters, out of which 400 claim they are news and current affairs. We are the only country that describes itself as world's biggest democracy, etc., etc. But when news and current affairs on the radio is still a monopoly of All India Radio. AIR is unique as an organization. But what is very important today is you must understand, in this country of 140 million people, according to the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, we have over 115, close to 120 SIMs. SIM, Khulja SIM, subscriber identity module. What does this mean? It's not a phenomenon which is urban. It was once urban, metropolitan areas. It is all India. Most parts of India, including villages and remote areas, there are more SIMs than human beings. We are the biggest consumer base, subscriber base of WhatsApp. Out of these SIMs, not everybody, I mean, many phones have 2 SIMs. Many SIMs are not being used, but this is the reality of India. So why is the social media become so important? Because WhatsApp is being used by certainly 600 million Indians, perhaps 700 million Indians. I'll give you some anecdotal evidence. I'm about to finish. About 10 years ago, a young relative of mine came and said, हमने सुना कि हर मुसलमान आतंकवादी नहीं है, मगर हर आतंकवादी मुसलमान है. I said, दादी, कौन बोला? WhatsApp. So all I can say is, every mob lynching in India, there's a WhatsApp message. WhatsApp has been weaponized. I've written co-authored a book on the subject. I can talk on this for a long time, but I'll stop. Yes, please.
Yeah, there is a question first, just note this, from Diptendu Bhattacharya. So it's a kind of a loaded question. Has any other government at the center driven its policies and projects at the same pace and realized the outcomes as this government? Perhaps that is what has swayed opinion in its favor. Diptendu Bhattacharya. Yeah, the next question is by
Diptendu? Yeah, sure.
Next question is, I have one question. My name is Arif Raza. And there have been accusation of this government that they sort of manage the independent institutions, the institutions that are supposed to be working autonomously. And a lot of surprising data, I mean, very fascinating data being shared, GDP growth or, ease of doing business. Those are very attractive. So in your opinion, how do we have reason to sort of, trust or not be very convincing on these data that are being shared? How much cautious should we be on that?
Yeah, any other question? Yeah. Yeah.
Diptendu is all right.
I'm Sebastian Rodrigues. I have one question to you, sir.
Sir, your name, sir?
I'm Sebastian Rodrigues. Sebastian Rodrigues.
Thank you, sir. Please continue.
Yeah, my question is related to mix of politics, media, and particularly would be happy to hear your experiences as an editor of EPW and kind of pressures that you faced right up to that led to the removal of a couple of articles from the website of the EPW by the pressure from the commercial and the political establishment. Thank you.
Let me answer these three.
Yeah, two quick related questions. One is it a new world order that we are seeing where this kind of dominant leadership seems to be happening in many parts of the world? There's Erdogan, Putin, Trump, likelihood of him coming back, and so many more. That's one part of the question. The second is, it appears that with democratization of media, so you have, access is so much more easier. I find in many other places, except, in politics, so let's say students who come into GIM or, careers and finance, investing, the role of influencers seems to be very large. Politics is one place where I don't really see that. It seems to be the opposite. Because it seems that, panel discussions, television shows and things like that are really, no influence at all. The only influencers seem to be the political leaders themselves to some whatever extent.
All right. Let me go in a different order and answer your question, sir. Dr. Ajit Parulekar. A person who shares your surname is a bitter critic of the government. Raju Parulekar. Raju Parulekar. He's a very popular, I'm trying to answer your question in a slightly different manner. He's a very popular YouTuber, as they call them. And he's a trenchant critic of Shri Modi. Because he's able to express his views in the way he does this really mean we have a free media? Now, I would say no. Today, a larger part of the mainstream media in India has become subservient to the ruling establishment than before. There was always a section of the media that was dependent on government financial support in the form of advertising, sponsorship. But due to a variety of circumstances, including the change in the economics of the media across the world and also in India, the relative dependence of media organizations on governments, both state and central government, have gone up. As a result of which, media organizations fail and individual journalists fail to play the role envisaged for them in a democracy, fourth estate, holding truth to power, holding accountable those who are in positions of power and authority. So instead, they become subservient. The old saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Basuri Bajak is a very good flautist. He can play Rag Hamsadwani and Rag Yaman, but you're paying him. Are bajao yaar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And I'm going to give you a slightly long answer to this question before I come to the second part of the question and the role of influencers and the role of who influences policy. It is perceived that the anchors on the idiot box influence policy. But let me say, Shri Narendra Modi is the first and the only Prime Minister of India who has never had an unscripted press conference. Never, ever. Where like here, anybody can ask me any question. You can ask me a nasty question. When did you stop beating your wife? Yeah, you can ask me any below the belt question, but he's never addressed that press conference. Instead, what he has done, he's picked people who he wants to be interviewed by. They are those who are ideologically aligned to him, like my friend Rajat Sharma, who has been a part of the Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, which is a students' wing of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. So it's not that they always ask goody questions, but they often don't ask difficult questions. And so he's expecting those questions. He's not being cross-questioned. Say on demonetization, on the lockdown, I don't think the media has asked him difficult questions. On China, what happened in Ladakh, people haven't asked him questions, which are tough. His so-called megalomania, people haven't asked him. And Mr. Modi also gives interviews to non-journalists who he wants to. So Shri Prashun Joshi can ask him why he's such a hard worker, why he hardly sleeps at night. But the best is, of course, the well-known actor. He used to be a citizen of Canada. Now he's a citizen of India, one of India's highest taxpayers. He said, my driver has asked me to ask you this very important question. No, he never said that. मेरा driver ने हमसे बोला कि ये सवाल जरूर प्रधानमंत्री से पूछिए क्या मोदी जी आप आम कैसे खाते हैं आप काट के खाते हैं या चूस के खाते हैं? So, you know, if you have an atmosphere like this, when the man right on the top, the most powerful person on top, refuses to answer questions, why are you surprised? So, sorry for giving you such a long answer to this question, but even in 2019, when he came back with a bigger majority, bigger vote share, sitting next to him was Sri Amit Shah, our Honorable Home Minister. He took all the questions from the media. Mr. Modi only smiled. He never responded to any question. Now, why? Why is this? He gave interviews before 2014. Why has he stopped giving interviews? I cannot answer this question. Please ask him when you meet him. Maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe he believes the media doesn't matter. Now, this is a trend that you see a little different from Trump. Trump may have contempt for the media, but he still takes a few questions. So he said, CNN, fake news. He says it, and then he doesn't. I mean, that's his way of answering questions. The New World Order. Yes, we see the rise of right-wing demagogues for whom emotional appeals are more important than facts or factual analysis to get the kind of political support that they get. Erdogan, you mentioned, you talked about Putin, you talked about Trump, you didn't mention Duterte. We have Marcos' son who has replaced him. We have the Shushain boy who defeated Bolsonaro by 1% of the vote and is the Prime Minister of Brazil. Bolsonaro went for a holiday. Sorry, he wasn't a fugitive from the law. He was having a holiday in Florida. But if there is any one person, this is a very personal opinion. If anybody really, Mr. Modi's role model among international leaders is Xi Jinping. And he didn't come for G20. It's not good news for Modi ji, but such is life. He has met him at least twice, once in Gujarat, once in Tamil Nadu. Diptendu Babu, I completely agree with you. The success of Mr. Modi is that the sheer pace, the sheer speed at which he has been able to use the media, to use so-called social influencers is unparalleled. The use of the social media is unparalleled. The use of modern technology, again, unparalleled. This is, together with his ability to personalize politics, this has been one of the reasons for his biggest success. So I completely agree with you. Janab Aziz ji, institutions have been, sorry, who's this? Diptendu. Diptendu Babu, sorry, aapni bolun.
Yeah, I believe you got it a bit wrong. I didn't refer to Mr. Modi's ability to drive the media, but to drive his actual projects and policies.
Achha. Yes, I will go along with you. As a communicator, as an orator, as a person who wants to tell the world everything that he's done, he's brilliant, absolutely. And he's also brilliant at not remembering some things that happened. Is that so? You 1 minute. You talked about data. Aziz also talked about data. I'm answering you, Diptendu. Why don't we have data on unemployment and jobs? Why has anybody disputed? Has Nirmala Sitharaman disputed the fact that she's not mentioned employment and jobs not once in his budget speech? Can you say no if I say that youth and unemployment in India is at its highest in almost half a century, 40 years? Can you say no to that? Do you remember what Modi ji has not done? Do you remember in to 2013, he said, "Na khaunga, na khane dunga." What did he say? Why did he say it? Why did he say that, you know, I'm going to bring all the black money back to India? Har parivar, garib parivar ko 15 lakh rupees milega. And when Amit Shah was asked this question, he said, "Chunawi jumla." So at one level, Mr. Modi has successfully implemented several programs. Swachh Bharat is one of them. The food grain scheme is another of them. Many schemes. But he's also failed in several other things and misinformed, lied about several other things. I told you about the migrant workers. So I don't see it as a one-sided kind of situation, Diptendu Babu. And I hope I've been able to answer your question. And one of the things and this is linked to the question that has been asked by Aziz Rafa. Arif Raza. Sorry, Janab. मैंने गलती किया आपका नाम ठीक तरह से उच्चारण नहीं कर पाया. Arif Raza ji, institutions in India have been hollowed out. Let's look. Can I give a slightly long answer to your question? And tell you, yes, whether it's the Election Commission of India, let's first look at bigger institutions, the media, the judiciary, the civil service, the bureaucracy. Let's look at not just the judiciary, the bureaucracy. Let's look at the defense services. I think these institutions have become more politicized than in the past. It's not that they were not politicized earlier, relatively more politicized. And this is true for the constitutional bodies. Election Commission of India. How is it that the Supreme Court gave up its own power to appoint the election commissioner? How is it that the Controller and Auditor General of India, another constitutional authority headed by Shri Murmu, was very close to Mr. Modi, why has the number of audit reports drastically come down? Look at the Central Vigilance Commission. When did you last hear of the Central Vigilance Commission acting against a corrupt bureaucrat? Are you trying to say it's not happening? Then look at the law enforcing agencies, the Income Tax Department, the Enforcement Directorate, the Central Bureau of Investigation, the National Investigating Authority. All of these have been used for political purposes in the past, but never ever on this scale. This is my personal view, and I can hold forth on this. The manner in which the UAPA, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, the PMLA, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the new laws to replace the Indian Evidence Act, the Indian Penal Code, etc., they've changed. The Criminal Procedure Code as well, yes. The whole notion of the burden of proof. Under the PMLA, you can be put behind bars and you will not know why you have been put behind bars. And then when you know why you have been put behind bars, it is the burden of proof is on you to say, I'm not guilty, and not the Enforcement Directorate. So these laws have been changed. So in the past too, those in positions of power and authority have always been intolerant towards their critics, be they political opponents, be they journalists, civil society activists, anybody, lawyers. But what distinguishes this regime from the earlier regimes is that it's vengeful. It's vengeful like never before. Let me give you an example and then I'll come to your question, Shri Sebastian. For the first time, the Narcotics Control Bureau has been weaponized. Have you heard of Shah Rukh Khan? Very rich, very popular. He's married a Hindu woman. He's got 3 children by her. What happened to Aryan Khan? He was in jail for just a little over, just a few weeks, less than a month. The man who arrested him is now being accused of extortion. What did they find? They found nothing against him. Shah Rukh Khan, you can be shown your place. What happened after that? It was earlier happened. Pathan. Arey, Deepika, you have insulted the saffron color. The Home Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Narottam Puri, said, "Apman kya, Bhagwan ka apman kya, besharam rang." In between 25 dress changes in 10 minutes, one of them is saffron. What happened after that? The producers of the film, Yash Raj film, started laughing all the way to the bank and back. They made 1,500 crores in 2 months. They never imagined. Then, of course, Shah Rukh Khan made Jawan and talked about EVM manipulation, on which Professor Sebastian Morris knows a lot about. He talked about the nexus between business and politics. He talked about the Kafil Khan episode, where a doctor was penalized for spending his own money to save children's lives by buying oxygen cylinders. They talked about farmer suicide. So this is my long answer to the question. And Mr. Sebastian, what happened in the Economic and Political Weekly? Some people believe I was sacked. I believe I was, a condition was created when I could not have continued in my job, because I believe no self-respecting person could have continued. This was in July of 2017. I served in that position for all of 15 months. I'm proud that I served an institution of its kind. The honorable trustees of the Samiksha Trust told me that I had destroyed the ethos of an institution which was almost as old as this country. I was told I was writing articles in my own name, which my predecessors hadn't. I should stop forthwith. I was told that I should pull down an article because I had committed an act of grave impropriety. Why? Because I had answered a legal notice that was served on the publisher, which is the trust, that a particular article which dealt with the Adani Group was defamatory. So I said, it was, in my opinion, it is not an act of grave impropriety. Yes, you can call it a technical error. I should have taken your prior consent and approval before preparing this letter. There was no financial costs involved. It was a pro bono act. Defamation cases have come and gone. I'm the proud recipient of 6 defamation cases filed against me by lawyers representing the Adani Group of companies. 5 of them are in Gujarat, one of them are in Rajasthan, one of them is in Rajasthan. In that meeting, the honorable trustees of the Samiksha Trust told me that I should not leave that room until that article is pulled down. Didn't take that much time to pull down an article from a website. Error 404, or was it 304? It happened. So I said, here, pull down. Please give me a piece of paper. Kora kagaz dijiye ek mein. I wrote my resignation out. They never thought I'd tell the world what happened, but I did. I gave a blow-by-blow account. I could never have imagined that so many people would support me. Hundreds of people, including 2 Nobel laureates, including Professor Noam Chomsky. The Nobel laureates were Amartya Sen and Angus Deaton. Professor Noam Chomsky came out in my support. I would urge you to read this article. It was republished by The Wire, and you can still read it. All you do is take the help of Google Guru, type my name, type Adani, Modi government, 500 crore bonanza. If I have to summarize a 4,000 word article, I'll give it to you in 2 sentences. It talked about how the rules governing power projects in special economic zones had been tweaked over the years. The last tweak was during the Modi government's time, and the biggest beneficiary of the change in the rules was Adani Power. The second part of the article talked about how the government of India, different departments and ministries of the government of India were processing an application for refund of customs duties to the tune of 500 crore rupees without first ascertaining or checking whether the duty had been paid. After the article appeared, the duty never got paid. Perhaps That could be a reason why Mr. Adani is not exactly my best friend. That could be a reason why 500, I thought 500 crore was small change. Mumfali ka paisa for a man who was once the second richest man in the world, and then the richest man in India in terms of market capitalization. That's another story. If your director doesn't mind, I can come again and give you a 1 hour long lecture on the oligarch called Shri Gautam Adani. It's a personal question. I've given you a personal answer. Behind each of these cases, there is a very interesting story. But one point I just want to say, in between the two waves of COVID in January 2021, judicial magistrate in Mundra served a non-bailable warrant of arrest against me. It was quashed by the High Court. The case is still pending in a court. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, there are two responses. One is actually not a question. This is from TV Rao. I have lived through all the, I have lived through all this history and very nice to revisit through the seminar. Okay. Always nice to hear you, Paranjoy. I used to attend these open talks at IMA, so it's a compliment to you. And thanks, TV. If you're still there, any questions you would like to raise? Dr. Alok Tiwari. So in the context of maintaining, what is it? Impartiality and what? As an anchor, how does one effectively navigate personal biases or affiliations to ensure fair and balanced analysis when discussing political scenarios? Okay. Specifically, is it necessary for anchors to align themselves with any political party, okay, to provide insightful analysis of the Indian political landscape? Well, before you take that, I'll add my little piece. Okay. So what?
Make it a big piece.
No, it's a little piece only. How do I get anchors to be different from Naptol girls selling wares? Naptol, no? Naptol. To me, I can't distinguish.
Sorry.
Naptol sales is
बांग्ला भाषा में बजा दीजिए.
वो जो प्रोग्राम आता है ना कि आप बर्तन ले लो.
अच्छा.
टीवी में. How do I distinguish the anchors from the Naptol girls, who sell their wares on TV? Okay. So, okay, now another question related to the media more seriously from my side. Please feel free to ask other questions. This has been said by Ambedkar, and that made me thinking, okay, though I have not come to an answer myself. There is a very famous interview of Ambedkar, which is not a, it's there on YouTube, but it's an interview which was done for BBC, I think. Okay. Now there, Ambedkar is going hammer and tongs against Gandhi. Okay. So what he says is that India at that time has two media. Okay. One is the Deshi, Gujarati kind of media, and the other is the international media. So his contention is Gandhi said a few things. So what he said in the local media, in the Gujarati media, was something very conservative and would appeal to conservative Hindus and so on. And what he said in the international media was what would appeal to modernists, the global, where he ticked all the boxes in terms of humanism, etc., etc. And he always was able to play this game in order to keep sufficient political support. Okay. So I'm not saying that's true, because I've not traced the positions or the statements Gandhi has made in various contexts, in a systematic way. But if Ambedkar has made it, certainly there must be some value in it. You can deny that upfront, in which case the question vanishes. But let's say if you hold that opinion, then today, during the Gujarat riots, I was struck by the point that the word secularism in the English media means what it means, secular. Okay? But in the Gujarati media, secularism means being pro-Muslim. Okay. So there is a scope, or is there not a scope, for a great leader to exploit this difference and, present in a sense two faces which don't get exposed because the two media never gets to talk to each other. Okay, what's your view since you're there in the media?
Okay.
Any other question?
I tell you what, I will answer more questions. Can I take these two questions?
Okay.
The three questions at a time?
Yeah.
Okay, Shri TV Rao, if you are still here, thank you so much for the kind things that you said. I do miss going to IIM Ahmedabad. It was a very, very rejuvenating and a very, very good experience for me. I had several friends at IIM Ahmedabad in Vastrapur, but well, since I was just a visiting faculty and my what do you call it? My contract would be announced every year once. It's not happened. Fine. Maybe one day they'll again like my face. That's all right. So I miss IIM Ahmedabad. Dr. Alok Tiwari, and the question that Sebastian Morris answered on this, let me first come to the points you made. You use words like impartiality, balance, fairness, bias, etc. Now, these are all very, very, very loaded words. Who is objective among us? किसके पास वस्तुनिष्ठता है? Let me tell you, none of us are free of bias. Our lives, our experiences, our background, our personal views all shape our biases. I will recount to you what my first editor, more than 46 years ago, almost 47 years ago, once told me. I had asked him exactly the same question. How does a journalist, as a reporter, remain unbiased? How can we be unbiased? And he said, forget it. None of us can be unbiased. We are all biased. There are some things we know. A says it's raining outside. B says it's not raining. Damn it, you're a journalist. Go and find out if it's raining or not. But no, this goes beyond that. Your bias, can you justify your bias? So I want to say, I am biased against the corrupt. I justify my bias. I said I am biased in favor of the underprivileged, the voiceless. I justify my bias. So, once in a while we make attempts to, sort of balance. We have a little bit of a balance to give an impression that we are balanced. But actually, none of us are. I've been speaking for 1.5 hours. If I ask somebody to summarize what I've said in 400 words, we all have different views. What is important to one is not important to the other. What is a quote unquote headline to another, to one person is not a headline to the other. So none of us are free from bias. So I don't even try to be unbiased. All I can say, I justify my biases. What Sebastian Morris said is very important. Of course, anchors are salespersons. They're much worse than the woman who sells you the bartan, because they pretend to be holier than thou. They pretend to be intellectuals. The lady who's trying to sell you something, she's not. So that they are less hypocritical and therefore far better. I think Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was very, very astute, politically astute. He was one of the most politically astute persons in the world, but he spoke to his audience. So if he says the Gujarati speaking audience wants to hear me say something in a particular way, I'll say it. And if an international audience wants me to say it in a particular way, I'll say it. So I don't think Gandhi compromised on his principles and his values. But he kept changing his mind. If you want to pick out that huge volume of statements, speeches that he made, and pick one little statement and say, look, he said this yesterday, today he says something else. There have been much worse things that have been said about Gandhi. But he's real. He was real. And come to politics and the nexus between business and politics, where was he killed? He was killed at the home of Ghanshyam Das Birla, one of India's richest men. He was a nationalist businessman. But the point you have made is a very, very significant point and a very important point. These words mean different things to different people at different points of time. Dharam nirapekshata, secularism, appeasement, किसी को खुशी करना. What's the context? The word secularism has different meanings within India, but it's got different meanings from the way the word secularism is used outside India. Say in Europe, clear separation of the church and the state. I mean, people like Rajiv Bhargav have written books on the subject. By the way, Rajiv Bhargav is also on the board of the Samiksha Trust, the same board that told me I had done terrible things. He was my classmate. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm just sort of digressing a little bit. You are absolutely correct, Professor Sebastian Morris. That's how words, we are in the post-truth generation. Sorry, we are in the post-truth era. And that the word secularism has come to mean pro-Muslim in a certain context should not surprise you. What should surprise you is how hatred has become normalized in Indian society. And it's not just that 1/4 or 1/4 of India think Modi is God, but how a section of India's population believe there's nothing wrong in a Muslim getting lynched. There's nothing wrong in 1 out of 7 Indians being told, you want to live in Hindustan, then be prepared that you're a second-class citizen. For the first time, you actually had a law being amended on the basis of religion, CAA, the Citizenship Amendment Act. So we are indeed in that post-truth world, and we are indeed seeing things which have never happened before. And the way the social media has amplified this in terms of scale and in terms of speed. Propaganda is not new. Propaganda has existed for donkey's years for several decades. What the social media can do is the speed at which it is disseminated, spread, is unprecedented. WhatsApp says it's end-to-end encrypted. I can have one click of the button, I've made a WhatsApp group of 250 people. So with that one click, it has reached 250 people. With four clicks, I've reached 1,000 persons. Now, this speed and the scale of being able to spread misinformation and disinformation is for the first time we are seeing this in this country. And in this regard, you should keep in mind what the international digital monopolies are doing in India. I mean, take just Facebook, which is Meta. Meta is Facebook, Meta is Instagram, Meta is WhatsApp. Alphabet is what? Alphabet is Google, Alphabet is YouTube, and most importantly, Alphabet is the Android operating system. Imagine the kind of power wielded by these two giant multinational corporations for profit. They are not here to do philanthropy. But look at the amount of power and influence they wield and what we see, what we hear, and what we watch. Unprecedented.
Hi, Paranjay. 2 questions. One is what do you think is the future of the electorate, particularly when, taking from our state, Goa's experience, that last election, we started off with 17 Congress members, and currently I think we have 3.
Where?
In Goa.
I don't know enough about.
Yeah. So, I mean, the horse trading or whatever animal trading that goes on the floor, the question is that when voters vote based on party symbols, unless you're an independent, and then the party en masse, members of the party or individuals trade over to the party that you did not vote for or actually voted against, what in that context, and that we have seen in many places like Manipur, minority government, Goa started off as a minority government. In many, many places, you see minority governments being formed. And then it becomes a majority by purchasing MLAs. In that context, what is the future of the electorate? So was it like a sham thing? Like, will it continue this way, or are we seeing movements of legislative changes or court interventions where this will be prohibited? Is there any direction in that? Second question is more to do with our industry, which is that this is also taking off from what you just mentioned about Modi not having had a single press conference of a real nature. He also dropped having press conferences as when he was the CM of Gujarat.
He answered one question in Washington.
Yes, and that was it, in Washington. Now, the question is,
the right-wing trolls picked on the religion of the lady who asked that question.
Yes, yes. The question is, given that he has not done the very basic duty of democracy of being accountable to free press, what is the position, collective position particularly, of the journalists, in particular of Editors Guild, all the press associations? Is there an outstanding litigation, petition? Is there any organized move by journalists of this country putting pressure on the PMO that he is accountable and therefore should be addressing press conference, or has it been given up, or has it never been tried?
Okay, I'll answer both your questions. Yeah, sure. That is Mr. Stalin. He's one of the founders of Video Volunteers.
Hi, I'm Rohit. My question is, why in the Indian context, we see secularism as only a Hindu-Muslim bhaichara? Because are these the only two religions which define secularism? And second is, why don't we hold sometimes media answerable in terms of miscommunication or misinformation?
So I'm Crystal Ferrao, former journalist as well. So I wanted to know, in terms of journalism, the ethical or moral dilemmas that editors face, wherein one side you are told to be you're told to follow the media code, the law, the ethics part of reporting without any political pressure and biasness, or even the business pressure that comes to an editor. Versus the whole business of media concept, where you say that editors say we can't do anything because now we are getting the money from the politician. That is why, from where do you get the revenue? So one side, the revenue part and making the money, versus saying that journalism is a profession of, say, being ethical and being moral and actually being the voice, that social responsibility theory of the press versus the entire authoritarian and opinion, like the magic bullet theory and whatever. So how do you?
So let me see, these are all not very simple questions to answer. Rohit, secularism is much more than Hindu-Muslim bhaichara. But Hindu-Muslim bhaichara, why is it important in India? Because Hindus comprise more than 80% of the population. At least that's what the census says, 2011 census. Muslims are 1 out of 7 Indians. They're the two biggest in terms of religion, religious denomination, religious faith, the two biggest communities in India. Christians are there, Sikhs are there, Parsis are there, Jains are there. Buddhists are there, but these are the two because therefore in the Indian context, these are important. In other countries, the situation is different. So that is my short answer to your question. Let me try and club what Ms. Ferrao has said with the, the subject you're talking about is a huge subject. I'll be very happy if I give you a textbook that was authored by me more than 13 years ago. And it's about how, these words, the ethical dilemmas. There are many ethical dilemmas. A man is committing suicide in front of you, burning herself or himself to death. You're a journalist, you're a photographer. What's more important is to save that person or take a picture? Both. That's it. But there are others. Yes, that's right. So you're saying, I'm not a counselor. My job is not to save a person from suicide. My job is to take photographs. I'm just giving you the other extreme. You should read what Martin Luther King had to tell a photographer who was taking pictures of the police when there were rallies. And he says, yeah, take your picture. You're paid to do that. It's your job. That's your duty. That's your obligation. So what you actually said is very important, but it's a complicated subject. I would say we have to take a call on individual situations because each situation, each context will have its own unique aspects and unique features. So one shouldn't generalize. That's the only thing. These ethical dilemmas will come. We have to be confronted with it all the time. Suppose your boss says, you sleep with me, otherwise you don't get a promotion. Okay? You don't have any other alternative. You need that job. What do you do? These ethical dilemmas confront each and every one of us at different points of time, and we act as per those ethical dilemmas. So again, I'm not ducking your question, but all I'm trying to say, each dilemma has to be looked at in the context, in the situation in which it's there. And as Sebastian Morris was saying, if somebody is going to kill himself or herself in front of you, you're the human being first or a reporter second. We all have our multiple identities. Stalin, you have asked two questions and they are very, very complex. They're not easy. I will ask Professor Sebastian Morris, who I'm going to be interviewing early in the morning tomorrow, thanks to you, about the flaws and the inadequacies of our electronic voting system. It's a huge subject. There's a book on the subject. I'll be happy to give it to you. But this whole issue of anti-defection, buying members of parliament, members of legislative assembly as if they were horses, has got a lot to do with many things that are not imperfect, which are downright wrong and venal about our country. What do you say to that person? You were elected on my symbol. You sold your soul and much more because somebody has given you big bucks. What does he say? He'll give his justification. The person who's paying, he said, no, I haven't paid anything. He chose to switch sides. What do you do? And Professor Sebastian Morris here will tell you a lot of what has gone wrong with the way the anti-defection laws in this country have been working. Journalists are notoriously divisive. We are often our own biggest enemies. Whether it be the Editors Guild, whether it be several associations, I am myself been a member of some of them. I myself headed a few of these associations. They keep telling the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister hasn't listened so far. When you talk about these institutions and holding truth to power and holding those who are accountable for their position, all the laws are being changed. Information Technology Act, that the Indian Telegraph Act, the Press and the Registration, the Press and Registration of Books Act, PRB Act, everything has changed. The bills that are pending, the laws that have already been created are not at all going to be conducive to strengthen freedom of expression. I'm a consultant with NewsClick. See what they did to NewsClick. For the first time in the history of this country, over 300 police personnel, men and women, were asked to assemble in the office of the Delhi's police, the special cell, at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they paid a coordinated visit to 80 homes in the National Capital Region. In the emergency, you heard about the midnight knock. This is the morning alarm service that you're seeing. And then what happened? They all went, and many of them were asked. The women were not asked. Never before has this happened, not even during the emergency. For the first time in the history of this country, as we talk, there are hundreds of personal electronic devices with the police. Laptops, mobile phones, pen drives, hard disks. Under what law? UAPA. Supreme Court is waiting for these guidelines to be framed. So, I think several attempts have been made to put pressure on the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office. But these have been futile. They've not worked. So, what is it? You keep banging your head against the wall and hope one day that wall will break. But sometimes your head may break too. Keep trying. Never before have so many journalists that these laws have been invoked. Say sedition, Deshadrohi, Rashtradrohi. These laws have been used more frequently against journalists in the last 7-8 years than before. Sitting in Delhi, I'm privileged. The idealistic reporter in a remote area in a small town who's fighting the mafia today, the citizen is the journalist because he has that mobile phone. You, as a part of video volunteers, know this better than others, most others. So we keep trying and we keep trying and we keep trying. And we have to keep trying. It's very easy to be despondent. It's very easy to be pessimistic and believe that nothing will change. But I think we should be hopeful, should not be despondent. Bhavishya ekdam andhakar nahi hai. वो आशा का किरण आपको मिल जाएगा. So we keep fighting. Please.
So, like you talked about media being subservient to the ruling dispensation.
Sorry.
You talked about the media being subservient to the ruling dispensation, and also which is popularly known as Ravish Kumar coined as Godi media.
Godi media.
So, is this phenomena is related to the media ownership? Who are owning those medias, and they are the like the Chalika Shaktis behind these medias, like the driving force behind this? Because as common people, we are in a flask in the sense that some incidents happen, and like those are physical incidences also. Like we get different versions of. Like in the age of communication, information technology, the world is replete with large-scale misinformation. Suppose I give some examples, like suppose what happened in Balakot, we don't know. So there are different versions by different medias, mostly Godi media.
Satyambal Malik.
Then what happened in the Delhi riots before the election last time? So what happened in the Jamia agitation? What happened inside JNU? So like we got different versions. Like it is like, but there are so many audio visuals of those incidences. But why we are getting so different versions? Like in earlier days, even when there are so-called I would say like to generalization that their government was putting a lot of pressure on certain media, suppose during emergency. certain media, they resisted those. Like I was very young at that point of time, but suppose Statesman resisted, Indian Express Group resisted.
Himmat registered.
So like Statesman came out with a blank newspaper in Kolkata and on different, in Delhi also. So why we are not seeing those kind of resistance in today's world? And also this kind of Godi media pattern is also not linear. So there are media houses in national level who are very pro ruling dispensation, and the same media, when they operate in Calcutta, they are again
You're talking about Anandabazar Group, and I'll give you the example.
that CNN 18 group. So there are, and they are one of their editors has become like MP in Rajya Sabha also. So like, so in such situation, like how you like, why this degeneration of media, like, and what is the remedy? Like,
Okay.
we need to have some kind
Shall
of
I answer?
escape route out of this.
Okay.
This is one question. You answer this, then
This is a huge question. I mean, to answer this question, I can speak for half an hour, but I won't. Ravish Kumar coined this phrase, Godi media. What was the reference? Godi, lap, kiska lap? The journalists are supposed to be watchdogs of society. So when the thief has entered your home at 4 o'clock in the morning and the dog starts barking, the thief doesn't know whether the dog can only bark, it cannot bite, it has no teeth. It can only drink milk. सिर्फ भौंकना आता, काटना नहीं आता. They are dogs and they are dogs. They are elephants and they are elephants. So when the dog is a lapdog and the lap belongs to a rich businessman, a mafia don, a military general, a top civil servant, or an important politician, the dog only wags its tail. Forget barking, forget biting. Just stroke it gently and it'll wag its tail. There's a third category of your dog called the watchdog. Not the watchdog, sorry. It's the intelligent dog, the guide dog. A visually challenged person is helped to cross the road. The dog can smell explosive substances and drugs from a pile of luggage. Saint Bernard dogs rescued people who were caught in the mountains, snow blizzards were there. So dogs are dogs. There are dogs and dogs. There are journalists and journalists. There is resistance. In the emergency, there is resistance. There is more resistance today. But the situation has changed from what happened in the 1970s to what happened 40 years later. Almost 40 years later. The speed of misinformation, the speed of disinformation is unparalleled. You talked about Delhi riots, you talked about Jamia, you talked about Inside JNU. You'll always have multiple versions. Please see a film, a classic film made by a Japanese film director called Akira Kurosawa. And it's a film called Rashomon. There are different people who give you the different interpretations of the same incident that has happened in the forest. And you as the viewer gets the full picture only after you've heard all the versions. That's one. Take Balakot. Today we have the former governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Satyapal Malik, openly says Modi has got the blood of 40 CRPF Jawans on his hand. He said so, not I, he said it. He said he can kill an important BJP leader for political purpose. He said, I spoke to him on the day he was shooting at the Corbett Park. And this is what he told me. He told me to keep quiet. Ajit Doval told me to keep quiet. This is not me, it's Satyapal Malik saying. Let's see what happens. Delhi riots, Jamia, it's the same story. All I want to say is that, like business persons, they give money to different political parties. One is in power, one is the opposition. Why does he give money to the opposition? Because one day that opposition politician can come to power. Or day after tomorrow he can come. So he's hedging his bets. Anandabazar Patrika, the group. The most watched channel of the group, ABP News in Hindi, is as pro-Modi, Islamophobic, more interested in criticizing the opposition than the ruling party, in comparison to any of the major Hindi channels, whether it be India TV, whether it be Republic TV, whether it be Aaj Tak, etc., etc., etc. Why is Telegraph every day carrying a headline which is against the government? Balancing act. India Today group, you have Rajdeep Sardesai. Sitting next to him is Rahul Kanwal. Like the famous former Chief Minister and Union Minister of Uttar Pradesh. He swings both ways. Shri Narayan Dutt Tiwari, Indira ka Pujari, Sanjay ka Savari. Na nar, na nari, Narayan Dutt Tiwari. Depends on whether you want to see him, which way he can be man and also woman. So that's how it happens. Of course, the media has degenerated. All institutions have degenerated. But if you compare the emergency today, what happened almost 40 years ago and what's happening today, several changes. Technology. You didn't have the social media, you didn't have the internet. You had newspapers, you had magazines, you had radio. Television was in its infancy. Television really took off in India in the early 90s. During the emergency, television had just started in India with the Bangladesh war. So you cannot compare the two situations. In certain respects, things have become far worse today. You today have an emergency which has not been declared. It's an undeclared emergency. So, Dr. Kingshuk Sarkar, the subject of your question is huge and many things can be said. I've tried to give you a quick summary of my views. Once again, there's much more that can be said, but given, I'll just stop here at this point.
So this is about like election that you talked about at the end of your speech. That so like with the coalition like the opposition coalition is fizzling out even before it formed. Like they had first meeting this INDIA.
What is the full form?
INDIA.
What is the full form?
Full form is very complex.
India, that is Bharat Varsh. India, Indian National Developmental
Alliance.
Inclusive Alliance. हाँ बताइए, you think India is falling apart?
The falling apart is also because in the sense that like it started in June. First meeting had happened in June. Then there are 2-3 meetings, one in Bombay, Patna and
Mumbai,
Mumbai.
Bangalore.
But now people already there is no, so far election is almost knocking at the door. There is no kind of seat sharing, not much clear. Even it is happening in very sporadic manner.
Okay.
So but people who are suppose not happy with the anti-incumbency factor and the people who are not happy, they are not getting an alternative in most cases. So in India, that I think that matters. Like for those who are not happy with the present ruling party, they need to have another party to be there. But it is not to be seen in most parts of India. So in such a way, why the opposition? Suppose we talk about employment or lack of employment and all these big issues, why these are not being kind of brought before the public on a daily basis in a consistent manner? Why opposition is not effective for the last, I would say, 5-6 years at least?
Dr. Kingshuk Sarkar, let me in all humility disagree with you completely. If you thought that the non-BJP coalition of political parties would become any closer than they already are, you were living, in my personal opinion, living in a fool's paradise. Cuckoo land. Why? There are several things that have happened which have brought together the India Alliance over and above their opposition to the Bharatiya Janata Party. And let me argue that the stupidity of those in power have helped the India Alliance. Seat sharing alliance is already over. There are only a few states where there is a little bit of a dispute, and those disputes will never be resolved. Say Bengal. TMC wants to give Congress 2 seats more. It has 2. Congress wants 6. TMC will never give. Finally, what will happen? Behind closed doors, there will be, you have put up a strong candidate, we'll put up a weak candidate. We'll tell our supporters, vote for the best candidate. This happens, it has been happening for decades and decades. It is again going to happen. It'll happen in Delhi. It'll happen in other parts of the country as well. But by and large, in all the major states in India, the seat sharing arrangement has been worked out. Matter of 2-3 seats, it will never be resolved. Now, let me suggest to you that Mr. Modi's success, during my talk, I made this point and I'm repeating it. The Tina factor. मैं अकेला, मेरे खिलाफ से पप्पू. The personalization of politics. Didi and Kejriwal didn't speak to Nitish and said Mallikarjun Kharge will be the prime ministerial face. Because people in India are looking for faces or personalities, not issues like unemployment, like inflation, like whatever, privatization. They want people. There is no alternative. Tina. Now, I think this, if you look at it only in this way, you will perhaps miss some other things that have happened. In roughly 150 Lok Sabha constituencies in India, the fight is very close. That's where Professor Sebastian Morris can tell you the inadequacies of the electronic voting system will play a role. Because the gap could be 5% or less. There are spoilers. The AIMIM is a spoiler. The Bahujan Samaj Party is a spoiler. So you don't know how those things will shape. But if you say the India alliance is falling apart, I disagree with you. It could not have been closer than it is at present. Let me illustrate and conclude my answer to your question with a point. Thanks to, I would say, the arrogance of those in power, they literally pushed a person called Arvind Kejriwal into the Godi of the Congress party. Till November of 2022, Arvind Kejriwal was arguably more critical of the Congress than the BJP. He wanted to become a national party. The Aam Aadmi Party wanted to become a national party. You need 3% in 3 states. So he got it. He cut into the Congress vote in Gujarat. His logic is, yeah, Congress tum to kahin bhi nahi ho waise bhi. So let us become a national party. CPI, Communist Party of India, you're no longer a national party. He had 5 MLAs and finally, I think 4 MLAs, 1 has gone to the BJP. Anyway, they'll switch sides. But there's more to it. You pushed him into the arms of the Congress. How did you do it? You did a few things after Hindenburg research report. You put his trusted health minister, Satyendra Jain, behind bars. You put his right-hand man, Manish Sisodia, in jail on the liquor scam, including you thought you would kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get KCR's daughter, Kavita. Manish Sisodia is still in jail. You got the richest man in the Aam Aadmi Party, Mr. Moneybags, Sanjay Singh, behind bars. Two things happened. Shri Kejriwal convened two special sessions of the Delhi Vidhan Sabha. Where you can see it on YouTube, he made two statements. The one statement was, ये पैसा ये तो अडानी जी का नहीं है, ये कंपनी तो अडानी जी का नहीं है, ये तो मोदी जी का कंपनी है. He said it. Now, if he had said it outside the Vidhan Sabha, he could be sued for defamation. But he's saying it on the floor of the house, so he's immune from prosecution, unlike me. Then he also had another session where he made that हमारा देश महान है, हमारा लोकतंत्र महान है, इतना महान देश में हमारा प्रधानमंत्री को चौथा क्लास पास नहीं होना चाहिए. He didn't even name Modi. Then what happened? He won a case in the Supreme Court, the Delhi government, saying that the Delhi government has a right to transfer and appoint civil servants in the departments and services like water, electricity, road, law and order, in any cases with the central government. But that's what happened. He changed the Lok Sabha, the law was changed. So the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi has more powers actually than the elected Chief Minister. This is the time, after that, he and Mamta said, हाँ, Kharge ji ka naam hona chahiye, Prime Minister Facebook. So I'm telling you my perception of politics. Of course they did. Absolutely correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. The question is, will it happen again? Probably not. This happened in the assembly elections here. Lok Sabha is separate. Sthaniya mudda, Rashtriya mudda, local issues, national issues.
And the policy advocacy and
They certainly had an important role in states like Karnataka.
but over the years, I mean, I am one person who listened to Modi in 2001 after the earthquake, when he praised all the NGOs and we felt very good. And then there was a 360 degrees change. Now, two places, why this change and what is the NGO sector? Nobody talks about it. And
A lot of people are
we don't
talking
talk
about
about
it. Acha, yes, sure.
touch upon it.
Absolutely, ma'am.
And second, what's the future for this?
Okay. I believe that the FCRA has been weaponized. I mean, there are dozens of institutions that have been completely finished because Modi and Amit Shah perceives that these NGOs, these specific NGOs are not working in his favor. He's of the view, like George Bush Sr., if you're not with us, you're against us. So NGOs have been targeted, well-known NGOs, Amnesty, Oxfam, the Center for Policy Research, the Indian Social, they are being seen as those who appease minorities, those who are helping people opposed to our government. So this is unfortunate but true. The Foreign Contribution Regulation Act was enacted during the emergency. It became weaponized much more recently. So yeah, the same story with UAPA, the same story with the PMLA. Civil society has a very important role to play. But Mr. Narendra Modi believes that civil society organizations that receive foreign funding are those who are against his government. He sincerely believes that, and that explains the action taken by the Ministry of Home Affairs against these NGOs, non-government organizations. And you have to keep in mind the fact that, yeah, that the FCRA is implemented by the Home Ministry. I have a humble bit of advice to you. Don't give up the fight. The darkest hour is before the dawn, just before the dawn. Don't lose hope. It's so easy to be pessimistic. It's so much more difficult to remain an optimist. That's all I can suggest to you. And yes, I have been associated with several NGOs in the past. I still am. Yeah. We have to keep hoping for the best. Somebody was asking me about the judiciary. I couldn't answer that question in detail. I think Stalin, you were asking about the judiciary. Do we have hope in the judiciary? Yes and no. Ness and yo. Yo and Ness. Yeah, electoral bonds. Now look what has happened in the case of electoral bonds. State Bank of India says we'll give it to you 1 month after the elections are over. We don't want to know how much Ambani and Adani and have paid to the Congress party. Forget the BJP. Yeah, well, why don't you speak into the microphone?
Yeah, it is that, why the media is not held accountable to biased manner. Actually, media is supposed to be like a mirror, which shows everything in its instance. I think you've answered this, so I will not repeat it. See, my point is slightly different. My question is different. Let's, for the moment, imagine that, even within the BJP, there could be an issue because here is a colossus, okay? And vis-a-vis whom everybody has been reduced to a junior minister or to an intern. Okay? So every minister in the Modi government is like an intern to Mr. Modi, correct? And now, how long can a bunch of people with political ambitions, suffer this? People who have no particular ability to win elections may perhaps enjoy that, like a Vaishnav or a Jaitley or equivalent, guys out there. But people like the Gadkaris of the world and real politicians within the BJP,
or Rajnath Singh,
and so
or
on.
Nirmala Sitharaman.
Yeah, I don't know. So can any change come from within?
That's a very tough question.
And so
please.
Can change come from within? And if so, isn't there a hornet's nest which can be let loose? Because my sense is Modi, all said and done, is riding the tiger of communalism, but he's still riding a tiger with the hope that he can continue to ride this and slowly tame the tiger. But his main objective is perhaps to ride the tiger. Okay? But if Modi is off the tiger, then would not the tiger of Hindutva, of hate, of national destruction, take over to a point where, you'd probably wish that Mr. Modi was there at least to hold the country together and take it into a dictatorship. So more than dictatorship, what may be threatening the Indian system is this hate, which can divide us and so on. Okay. What's your view on this?
All right. There was a recent survey by this American organization called Pew, which showed that a very surprisingly large number of Indians seem to support authoritarian rulers, including presumably Shri Modi. Let me try and answer your question. It's not an easy question. There are sections within the RSS and the BJP who are not just deeply disappointed and unhappy at what they perceive at Mr. Modi's megalomania, that, his picture is in every petrol station, every COVID vaccination certificate has his mugshot. His megalomania is evident to all, including within the BJP. But they say, look, he has brought us Hindu Rashtra. He's not changed the constitution, but it doesn't matter. He's brought it before the RSS turned 100 years old, which is 2025. So this is this ambivalence that yes, he's a megalomaniac, he thinks no end of himself, he thinks he's God, but he has taken the Hindutva project, the Hindu Rashtra project, further than anybody before him has. So this ambivalence is there. I have met people who have argued along similar lines. Take the farmers' agitation. It lasted for a year. Hundreds of people died. This was a peak of COVID. If you believe the representatives of the farmers, 700 people shaheed bana. Then you take back, you give a spin to it. It's the day of Guru Nanak's birthday. And he said, you know, that I could not explain why these laws are going to be good for the farmers. मैं आपसे माफी मांग रहा हूं. He used the word tapasya. He used the word, ये मेरा तपस्या है कि हमने हमारा किसान बंधुओं हमारा बात नहीं समझा कि क्यों ये कानून उनका फायदा के लिए है. That these are not black laws. These are not laws that are aimed at benefiting the two oligarchs, Ambani and Adani. But he actually withdrew the laws. I will say that there was not only no debate about the laws, the way in which the laws were implemented, peak of COVID, no discussion, rammed down the throat, is a style. Whether there will be an internal revolt is a difficult question to answer. It's certainly, if he remains where he is, the chances of an internal revolt happening seems unlikely, most unlikely. If Mr. Modi becomes weaker, then it could happen. But what is weaker? From 303, does it mean him coming down to 250 or 260 or 270? 273 is the halfway mark. These are difficult questions to answer, and honestly, I don't have the answers to your question. But when changes happen, sometimes they happen suddenly, in an unprecedented manner, and take all of us by surprise. I mean, again, you look at things differently. In 1945, Hitler was already on the decline. The Soviet Union under Stalin had come together with the Allies. And in 45, when they met in that salubrious resort along the Black Sea called Yalta, famous photo opportunity, Stalin, Roosevelt, Churchill, Hitler had to commit suicide. So we are seeing these things. I mean, history has parallels, but sometimes history doesn't always repeat itself. Sometimes it repeats itself as tragedy and as past. So again, your question is very important, but not easy to answer. I think we are over.
Sir, you've traced the entire trajectory of political developments in India.
I haven't.
Not entire, but to a large extent you've traced. Through all the highlights of your talk and through all that you've discussed today, my question is very general. What do you think lies ahead for young people? When we look around, I mean, you see a lot of young people, especially say in my age group, migrating. So you've said it twice.
I will repeat what I
Yes,
told.
I was just going to say that you said it twice, that be positive, be hopeful, and be
Not true, by
optimistic.
the way, be positive.
So, I mean, what lies ahead?
No, actually, as one of Sebastian Morris's favorite song by Jim Morrison and the Doors, I will ask him not to believe in it. I woke up this morning and I got myself a beer in the morning. The future is uncertain, the end is always near. So let it roll, baby, roll. all night long. The Roadhouse Blues. No, I'm being a little facetious and stupid, but Bernice, you've asked a very important question. I will repeat what I said. You know, Kali Yuga is here and now. If you believe the fight is more important, those values are more important, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, because the fight is important. You're fighting for what? You're fighting for truth. You're fighting for justice. You're fighting for what you believe is right. So whether you win or lose, doesn't matter. Recently, a person known to me said, we all love Bhagat Singh, but we don't want him in our own family. Bhagat Singh is great. We all admire him, but we don't want him to be my brother or my cousin. So all I can say is, don't give up the fight so easily. I mean, if you've chosen a path, it's not the easy path, but just keep at it. That's all. Thank you, Bernice. No, what I'm saying, yeah. Okay, shall we conclude? Just have just 1 minute, Bernice. He's the person who's making that arrangement for tomorrow. That's all. कालिदास, नमस्कार। बहुत दूर आया, 2.5 घंटा गाड़ी चला के आया आप।
On behalf of the Center for Public Policy and Governance, we extend a very big heartfelt thank you to you, sir, for your enlightening talk and a very interactive and a very interesting and intriguing discussion today. Thank you from all of us at the CPPG and at the Goa Institute of Management. Also, thank you to our director, Professor Ajit Parulekar, for inspiring us and for always motivating us in our efforts. Thank you to our chair, Professor Sebastian Morris, to Professor Kinshuk Sarkar. Also, a very big thank you to a lot of people who worked in the background to make this possible. Thank you to our IT team, Pranav and team, for always having our back. Thank you to the support staff at the Goa Institute of Management, be it the EcoClean, the K-Star Canteen, everybody who's made this possible. And this wouldn't have happened if not for all our participants in the classroom, as well as those who joined us online on Zoom, as well as those who joined us online on YouTube. So thank you very much. And we look forward to having you for our future activities and our conferences and sessions. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Bernice.